it's a sneaky little thing if people are, talking too much, goes over there.
Yeah, thank you. Before people come in, we'll show that. Do you want to do that right here?
So if they need more volume on what's coming from other people, there's a plus and minus, just like
I
that.
can hear.
Harry, do you know that?
What?
If we need more volume from people coming from the outside, there's a plus and minus volume.
Okay.
Okay, so- And we'll go, once we get the TV and we'll go.
Okay.
So when he spoke, it came out of the owl.
Yeah, way better than that, and then other options are way better than that. But I think it's a reasonable solution and very cost effective.
We do not have a new TV yet, right?
Not yet. No,
But he's working on that.
I can wait for the strong assistance to help me with this.
And then when we have that, what's on the screen will be up there.
Yeah. And we'll make it so it's easy to then, if you want, for the second one, because you guys will be twisting your head once to get to there.
Yeah, that's true. Could put even a smaller one up there, maybe.
Yeah, but we'll, if we get that one to work.
Yeah. Well, it works, it's just the power right
You
there.
can't use the HDMI.
Yeah, HDMI is actually destroyed.
Yeah, but all the rest of the.
If you like to go down to, I'll stand it down.
They could run something up over the top.
Well, yeah.
Right there.
But you're right, you could go with the smaller one. Actually, I'll give you a call tomorrow. Maybe we don't really need anything bigger than that. We'll just put two of that size. I think we can do it with the same money. I mean, spend that.
Yeah.
Well, that's not too bad.
You can work that out with Terry.
Yeah, okay.
That's not me.
Details.
As long as the fire department's happy.
Uh-oh.
Evening, Jan. You seem dressed for the occasion. So are you leaving after we get started?
Yeah.
So you're assuming everything's gonna go swimmingly smooth? and-
Swingingly. I know you guys got it. That's a chief technician.
And how do we shut things down?
Ah, good question.
So you back out of Zoom and YouTube the regular way.
Mhm.
And then when you take that cable out over there, you take the one that comes to the hour out, it powers down and falls zero.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And then,
I actually do have an opening door.
you know what? I wish I had one because the phrase is used a lot. And then I'll see you tomorrow in the next couple days and then we'll talk about how to best do cable management.
Okay.
Now, should we put that someplace
Secure?
secure or, I mean, how fragile is it? It looks fairly fragile.
The mounting it and unmounting it on the tripod probably will give enough opportunities to drop it than the chances of somebody doing something with it. The one thing you don't want to do is to have somebody come along because all the optics are on top. You don't want to have anybody ever put anything on here. You don't want to have them upside down messing with the cords, putting it on a table or something. So if you can stand it, what I would do is leave it on the tripod and leave it right to the corner.
Okay.
And go with the presumption that it's weird enough and complicated enough that no one will see it. Work for me. But yeah, Terry and I can talk about a strategy.
So you don't want to cover it with a cloth.
Not
Something like
really,
that.
no, just because of what cloth picks up, you know, you could sew a little storage thing for that. We'll talk about that. Little logo.
Maybe you should have a little sign, keep your hands off.
Yeah.
So is everything ready to go electronically?
Other than the plain red, yeah, your fan base has been picking up.
Okay, it's 6 o'clock. We'll call this meeting of the South Thompson Select Board to order. I can't see already. Adjustments to the agenda. Terry, you had one.
I have two now. I have a light flight request for $779, and I have 2 donations to the library.
Okay, and I would like to add just a quick brief discussion regarding the temporary easements in response to Christian's letter the other day. Make sure everybody's on the same page there, and there's a draft letter passed out.
I have all three.
Great, wow.
At some, probably at the end, I'd like to just go over a bit of prep for who does what at tomorrow's budget meeting with the budget committee. And are you not going to be there, John?
I believe I am not.
The other thing I'd like to discuss is the county's art fund situation.
Okay, I was thinking we could take that up on the update on the MIDC, if that's, what do you want to say?
I think they're separate kind of things, actually.
Okay, all right. Well, why don't we take them
In that
area, because I
That's
think they may spill into one another.
Okay. And then the third thing is was obviously some confusion based on the email that I got from Sue Snow the other day about the Hopkins will to the Historical Society. So I'd like to straighten that out and probably ask for a communique, John, from you to Mr. Dumont. And are you guys here about that Historical Society?
Yeah.
Item?
They're here for the lease.
They're here for a week. Well, how about if I impart the results of the meeting that we had 2 years ago, just so everybody's on the same page, and then let's put that in writing so that everybody understands.
Okay,
The facts there.
why don't we take that up under F? So there's 2 items there dealing with the Little Red Schoolhouse. We can make it a third. How's that?
Okay, good.
Okay. Public comment, is that it, Jeff? Public comment for items not on the agenda. Ken?
Can I ask for an update on the Island Road project?
You can, as a matter of fact, I think that will spill into the discussion that I just added to the agenda about the easements, if that's okay with you. And, okay, any other public comment for items not on the agenda? Okay. Review and approval of the minutes of October 12th.
I make a motion to accept the minutes of October 12th. Second.
Discussion? All those in favor? Nice job, Terry. Update regarding temporary relocation to Guilford Butler. I guess I'll just say, Jeff, any news from the fire marshal's office, and should we?
I'm gonna query John this week.
It's been a while now. I know they're on short staff, but
Yeah, they gave us a little impression that they haven't done by the end.
yeah, I just hate to say, oh, we sent that out a month ago. So,
I'll check.
anything else you want to add on that front?
Nope.
Penny, anything you want to bring us up to date on? I know you've had a ton of volunteers down there and,
And
I've been in
one
a-
floor has been installed.
yeah, I've seen that one floor, and that's the flooring that you're hoping the masons are gonna,
Oh, we hope the Masons will pay for two.
Yeah.
And then Brookdale will pay for the third.
okay, anything, the painting and stuff, or you want to,
Nearing, well, you think nearing completion, but then you turn around and it's like, oh, no, but we're getting there.
yeah, well, I've seen a ton of cars in there, and every time I walk in, people busy beavers in there, so.
There were so many cars the other day, I was afraid to go in. I didn't want to disrupt anything.
Everybody's working all
Pulled
over.
in
the place.
and left.
So anything else you wanna tell us or ask us, or? No, okay,
I have a question for,
sure, go ahead.
so Penny, the Red Schoolhouse has a T3 line. Is that the high-speed line you have, or is it 10 base
One line,
T1?
yes,
Is that moving over?
yes.
And Consolidated is doing that, or?
I assume Main State Library Network provides our broadband for $100 a year. And they handle all the scheduling and taking care of consolidated. That's all through the Main State Library Network.
Oh,
And
great.
as soon as we have a rubber stamp, they're prepared to get moving.
Okay, so they've already been notified and that this is pending and shortly, hopefully, and,
Yeah.
okay. That all, Walter?
Yep.
Okay. All right, consider appointment to the Library Community Center Facilities Committee. We have an applicant, Candace Smith. Candace, are you here?
I am.
Hi,
Hello.
how you doing?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
Good, I'm John Spear, Jeff Northgrave. Hi.
Walter Wrights?
And do you want to tell us a little bit why you're interested in this? Sort of, we obviously read your letter, but
Pardon me. I'm new to the community as of March of last year, having bought a house and property in South Thomaston here. Both my husband, I hope you can understand this, both my husband and I are retired educators and advocates of the library and how it's used and maximizing its use. And when we heard about the comings and goings and looking at this lovely community, we thought, well, if there's ever a need between that or the whole board need, we'd like to join on because we feel that we have a very global perspective, having taught in international schools as well as schools here in the United States. And I would love to see a library also act as a community building facility, because we are a lovely tight community. I'm learning very quickly, and it's important that we make these connections. And I think it's important for us to align the library with the needs of the South Thomaston community. So that's my reason. Thank you.
okay. Walter, Jeff, questions, Walter?
Yeah, so the committee has a twofold mission. It's build a facility that is not only a library, but is also a community center. So, and during my own impression, during all the feedback sessions, was that the community center was as important or as frequently mentioned as the library. And I think that we put too much focus on the library and not enough, in my opinion, on the community center aspect, because I kept hearing over and over again about, wouldn't it be nice to get back to where we were before the Grange Hall burned down? Touch base with your fellow committee members about what their takeaway was during the many feedback sessions that we had, because they're on equal plane in terms of that.
Which I think is good.
Do you happen to have any fundraising kind of experience?
I've done some. I'm a better salesperson than I am collecting. So if you need me to go out and beg, I'm pretty good at that.
Have you had a chance to read the report that was, that the Guilford Butler Futures Committee prepared, and
Yes, I do.
you have, okay,
Yes,
and are
which
you,
also increased my interest.
okay, were you at the town meeting? In June?
Unfortunately, that night, no, I was
Okay.
at the Zoom meeting. at
Okay.
10.
So, there has been, I think this is fair to say, there's been a bit of a difference of opinion about whether to renovate the existing Guilford Butler School or to build new. The committee recommended to build new. And we've asked this of a couple other candidates. I just want to, and I'm gonna ask you straight out, I just want to make sure you're committed to that mission of building new, as opposed to renovating the existing facility.
Well, it's my understanding that I wouldn't come in with a preconceived notion that, and for me, to be honest with you, I would need to hear both sides, and I've seen some of the paperwork, so I would like to listen to more statistical discussion, but I also think that we need to be talking about what is the community people here, what do they want?
Well, I think my position and others are, we've had that discussion. And that resulted in the report, and that resulted in the voting on Article 10. So we did not appoint a couple of people who applied for this committee because we felt they weren't committed to that mission. And I know that several members on this committee do not want to, for lack of a better word, relitigate that discussion.
Well, I understand, and I can
So-
certainly come up to speed by reading, I can do that, but
Yeah.
I don't believe that I should stand here and say to you, I do want this old building to stay, I don't want, this old building to stay. I think I need to be open-minded first before I say anything.
Okay. Is that an issue for anyone?
Disqualifier as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I guess I struggle with that too.
Why is that?
Because this committee, because we spent 2.5 years of our lives having that conversation. And I think most of the committee members want to move on.
Which is which way do you want to move?
Well, that's the,
Yeah, just put a finer point on it. The town voted to have the committee build a new building. It did not vote for the committee to decide whether or not to renovate or build new. It voted to have the committee plan for, design, and pay for a new building.
And the townspeople are behind you on it, majority of the townspeople.
That was the
Well,
vote, that was the vote.
that
at
was
the
the
last town
vote,
meeting.
but it was close.
Yeah,
So,
Yeah, so the real question is,
Mhm.
right now, the marching order for this committee is not to figure out whether you need to renovate or not renovate.
all right.
Your task is to come up with a plan and pay for a new building. That's your task. The
Not
task is not to figure out which one's best.
you don't have to personally think.
Fine, right.
But I just wanted to make sure you're aware of that, because there was a couple of people who applied for this committee, 2 people who we did not appoint because they were not committed, if you will, to that mission. I guess
I'm
with
here
that,
to support the library and what people in the town have voted for and make it the very best that it could possibly be. And I plan to volunteer there quite a bit as well, but if that's a disqualifier, I respect your decision.
well, actually, what you just said is a little different than what you said a few moments ago, so I'm not sure it still is it is a disqualifier with me now, based on what you just said. And certainly, the temporary move to Guilford Butler is certainly something that you could support and volunteer for and so on and so forth. I don't see that in conflict with the goal of this committee. In fact, I see it compatible with it personally. So based on what you just said, I'm willing to move ahead.
Yeah, me too. So I'd make a motion.
Are you still uncomfortable with that, or?
No, because I think the committee will come forward if they don't think that everybody is pulling on the, rowing in the same direction.
And I do think the other two were more adamant that they were
Yes.
committed to renovation. And Paul made it perfectly clear. I don't remember who the other one was, but. Well, is there a motion?
If I make a motion that we appoint Candace Smith to the Library Community Center Planning Committee.
Second.
Further discussion? Do you want to add anything else?
No.
Well, certainly your enthusiasm is great.
Yeah, the only discussion I got is right now, we've got a full committee, you make a full committee, but it is really heavy on the planning and what we ought to do, and it's really light on the go get the money. And I think it passes or fails based on getting the money for it.
I'll learn the art, I'll find where the funds are.
Well, there are two people on the committee that have experience,
That's it,
and so,
we'll use that.
And just before we vote, their first meeting is scheduled
Yes, it is.
already.
November 3rd at 6 o'clock at the Little Red Schoolhouse Library.
And I will email co-chairs to let them know, depending on the outcome of this vote, to let them know that you're on the committee. It's okay. Further discussion? All those in favor? Thank you very much for coming to, and you're certainly welcome to stay. Next item is update on Nico's Internet Development Corporation. So let's, if we can, because we have two agenda items regarding broadband here since Walter made his suggestion. Why don't we take the update first? I don't know that there is much of an update.
Now, the coalition met 2 weeks ago, met the day after the now famous commissioners meeting. They spent most of their time updating each other or rehashing that, which was interesting, but not particularly useful. They've started the executive committee or the corporation officers have started to explore independent fundraising activity. Rockland, the only thing holding them back from being part of the corporation was paperwork that they owed to the corporation. And I would assume that was all signed, sealed, and delivered, but we'll find that out at the next meeting. And then the other thing is, I haven't heard from Mark Roulette. Has anybody else? Mark Roulette, feasibility study guy.
The last thing I saw was the email to you saying it was okay to pay after the fact.
I know he's got some health issues, so
Okay.
I will follow up. Because
Okay.
we need to sit him down with our committee and ourselves. That's the first step, is for him to meet with us.
Okay. So at this point in time, as far as you know, I know events change quickly. There are currently 4 members towns, correct? Camden, Rockport, Thomaston, and Rockland. Although Rockland, you're not 100% sure they've got
They
their
may not be
paperwork,
signed, sealed, and delivered,
but they're.
but the city council voted to join the corporation.
Okay. Okay. Has there been any response to our, or even a thought about responding to our letter that we
No,
submitted?
well, they haven't. I don't know about the thought. They said they
I know-
would.
I know they haven't, but that's why I thought maybe.
They said they would, but the response has not been forthcoming.
Yeah, I just feel like it's been quite a while now, and I put quite an effort into that, and I feel like it's sort of dropped off the back of the bureau onto the floor
I'll
somewhere.
ping them again ahead of their next meeting.
Okay, and now,
I'll tell them that it's obviously in the way of us moving forward along with the feasibility study. One other thing, so the feasibility study gets done, that's like a month to 6 weeks. If he has continuous effort on it. So what charter or criteria are we going to give to our committee for them to go forward? And because what they're chartered to do is come back to us and make a recommendation.
You're talking, when you say our committee, our.
I mean,
personnel-
Cliff and Ann
Right,
and-
yeah,
And Lynn,
yeah, I don't know, I haven't really thought that through, to be honest with you, I think. My sense is that the three of them, and I could be wrong, and I hate to say that, but my sense is they were very supportive of the, us joining the Mid-Coast Development Corporation. I mean, I think they wanted to hear the responses to our letter and see the feasibility study, but I think
yeah,
that was my sense. I think, I haven't actually heard much from Cliff lately, so,
yeah,
uh,
I think he's been practicing medicine.
yeah. I don't know, Jeff, do you have any thoughts, or?
No, I'd like to see the feasibility study done.
I agree with that.
Are you aware of any other towns that are
Um,
close or pending, or?
I think you, at least Union, Lincolnville are, the sense I get from their updates is that they're waiting for the results of the feasibility study.
Sort of in the same boat, yeah.
And that's probably true with Cushing. Although it's interesting because they've gotten the same legal feedback from Kristen that we got,
Right.
since she serves both towns.
Right. Okay, anything else on the narrow subject of
Nope.
MI, of the Mid-Coast Internet Development Corporation? Okay, you asked for it, so I'm gonna turn the floor over to you to talk about the county ARP funds in relation to broadband, I assume?
Not in relation to broadband.
Oh, okay.
So let me start with a personal opinion. From the very beginning, I have thought that it was a mistake and inappropriate. And what I felt was that the county should have thanked Joe Biden for the $7.7 million and turned around and dispersed it to the membership towns. That my feelings about that have only accelerated, given the tenor of events. And, you know, if you're a Treasury Department employee making the decision about the guidelines and the distribution of those funds, and you in Washington, and you hear the word county, you think Fairfax County, Virginia, Montgomery County, Maryland, Cook County, Illinois, Los Angeles County, California, counties that have sweeping broad powers and responsibilities for courts and law enforcement and schools. I grew up in Fairfax County, so I kind of know what I'm talking about. And social services. They are as different from Knox County as night is from day. And yet they were treated with the $7.7 million as if they were one of those. And for them to be talking about just funding social services, I think is inappropriate. I think social services belong to the municipalities that have responsibility for those. And I can go down a list of things that I think are focuses or focal points for the county commissioners that I disagree with as a citizen and as an elected official. And I would like, if you guys would join, I'd like to join in with, the first thing I'd like to do is ask Kristen, our town attorney, what she thinks of the merits of the cases that are being put forward by Bill Kelly and Paul Gibbons from Thomaston. I would also like to join with the letter writing campaign objecting to the approach and to the results that the county commissioners have engaged in.
Comments from there?
Yeah, and I'm on exactly the opposite side of it. For us to question how the feds came up with how they were gonna cut that money up and make assumptions that they cookie cutted it to one type of county versus ours, I think is presumptuous of us. But beyond that, municipalities, for example, us, are in no better position to allocate funds to those type of resources. So it comes down to regional versus local. And the only body in the entire state that can handle regional is the county. That's the only regional entity that we've got. And the other part is that I have read the legal ease information that's being floated out there. And I just flat don't agree with it. And so I am in no way ready to join in on that part of it. If we were going to make this case, I think the case would be made to the feds, not to the county. So and part of me is because I saw exactly how this happened at the airport. The airport got $23 million from the feds. And everybody said it was a mistake and went back to the feds and said, you made a mistake. You need to fix this. And the feds said, and I don't know if it was because they were already committed to it, or they've already gone down the path, or they were afraid to admit that they made a mistake. They said, no, we didn't make a mistake. Your $23 million stands. And so they gave Knox County Regional Airport $23 million and gave Portland Airport a couple $1 million. So how the feds divvy up these funds is a mystery well beyond South Thomaston's purview. And the money is in the control of the county. And I have no interest in battling the county over what they do with that 7.7. Because things like Knox County Sheriff's Office, the jail, Knox County Communications, those are big ticket items that the county is in control of. So how would you cut that 7.7 up? Would you say, okay, the county's going to keep part of it, a third of it, a quarter of it, and then we're going to divvy it up to the towns that have public works, have hospitals, or we're going to do it by population? So I just assume it's just a matter of who the elected officials are that are divvying up funds and deciding what to use it for. And Knox County commissioners are elected officials just like we are, and I think they're in a better place to broadly spend that money. So I do not want to protest it anymore.
I tend to agree with you, Jeff, that I do not want to second guess the feds. But my reason is more is because I don't really understand how those decisions were made at the federal level. And I also think that the jail has become our mental health treaty by default. Not that they ever wanted that role, but they've got it. So I have concerns. I do remember mentioning back to one commissioner several months ago that I did think that perhaps one strategy would be to take a certain portion and distribute it to the towns. This was way back, but certainly not all of it. What I really don't want to do, though, is I was quite, you referred to Paul Gibbons' letter and Bill Kelly's letter. My understanding is that actually has not been delivered to the county. It's been in the newspaper, it's unsigned, I've never seen a signed copy. So I don't even know if the county was ever hit with that, but I will say when I read that, I was very upset with the tone of it. And in particular, the fact that they threatened to sue the county commissioners and two employees on a personal level, not in their capacity as elected officials, which I can live with, that's fine. But when you start threatening to sue people at a personal level, which has happened to me here in this seat, and has happened to you, it doesn't feel very good, I'll tell you. And I found that I really don't want to have anything to do with, with the threats that were made in that letter. I found them quite repulsive, actually. I don't, the other point in that letter, the big point was that the commissioners didn't have the authority to spend that money. I don't know if that's true or not. My understanding is the charter, Knox County Charter is silent on that. And certainly the precedent has been that, and I think you can attest to that, that millions of dollars in grant money has flowed to the county and has not gone through the budget process at the county level. So I just don't feel like I have enough knowledge to make that decision, or support that one way or another. But I am, I don't know, I've always been somewhat skeptical. I'm gonna lay it right on the line here of the way the Midcoast Internet Development Corporation has informed some of the things that have happened. And after seeing that letter, whether or not it went or not, I don't know. I feel even more distant. So
What about Craig Curry's letter?
the letter from Cushing?
Yeah, and that has been delivered to the best. of my
Right.
knowledge.
But he did that on his own. as
I know,
understand
I know.
it. Yeah. And, he's certainly free to do what he wants to do. But I thought you were talking about us as a board. I mean, you had mentioned once sending something personally.
I already did. I sent a
Yeah, and I
letter. It was-
responded
it
to
was-
you and said that fine by me.
It was in the paper, last
Yeah,
week.
yeah.
And I
But-
sent it to them ahead of time.
I guess,
And I'm gonna send another one as an individual.
and that's fine. That's absolutely fine. No problem at all, obviously. But I read, and I'm gonna delve in a little more to the broadband if I can, since we opened this door, but I read the application and I was a little shocked. First of all, it's not from Midcoast Internet Development Corporation, it's from the town of Rockport. And it's strictly to benefit Rockport.
Yeah.
Other than, they do have some flowery language about sort of it will be the underlying foundation for further expansion. But every dollar goes to expanding broadband in the town of Rockport. And that, I thought, when I first heard it came from the town of Rockport, I thought they were just sort of doing it as a fiduciary capacity to have it flow to the Midcoast Internet Development Corporation, but it's not that at all.
It never
So,
was.
huh?
It never was.
I know, but I didn't know that until I read it.
Yeah.
And so I guess I don't know why I want to advocate that the county commissioners, and I'm not saying that you suggested this, but thinking it through, I'm not sure I want to personally advocate that the county commissioners send $7.7 million, $770,000 of their $7.7 million to the town of Rockport, when they have identified a whole host of issues. I watched that meeting and listened to the sheriff about the impending homelessness crisis. So I guess I'm inclined to stay out of it as a town.
If I could piggyback a little bit on the broadband issue. At the very beginning of this, I was extremely supportive of MIDC and that whole process. And because I originally thought it was to help us get broadband, or at least some degree of broadband, to our unserved areas. And South Thomaston has unserved areas, regardless of what Spectrum's use chart shows. I mean, if you had, and as I understand it, the chart that they show, if there's one house that has any broadband or any service, then that whole road is considered served. And the reality is that's not true. But when they shifted, and they used the word pivot, they pivoted.
Who's they?
MIDC and their documents, and when he sat in here and talked to us, he said, we shifted from the unserved to the underserved. And it's not actually the underserved, it is to those that have existing to make it better. In other words, we want fiber optics where we currently have cable. And with all the problems with their documentation and how they stood up and what their rules were and their bylaws and their inability to listen to our suggestions, I am not interested in, at all in them getting a penny of South Thomaston money, especially since when we have the study done, I think we're gonna find that us, South Thomaston, has pockets of unserved individuals, houses, and that ought to be our focus, is getting it to where there is none right now.
Go ahead, Sean.
Okay, first of all, I really wanted to separate MIDC from the county because I believe that the county has received, just remember where these funds came from. All right, they didn't just fall out of the trees. They came from our income taxes and they're being circulated around. And so I just object to the county having nickel one to spend on this stuff.
Well,
Regardless of that, let me talk about MIDC for a minute. Because of the level of service that Spectrum provides, although a lot of people would say that we are ill-served rather than served, we are ineligible for most grants because we are not considered unserved. But we all know that the last mile or fiber to the house or cable to the house is lacking in a lot of places. And to me, South Thomaston is not going to solve that problem on its own. So what I'm hearing is that we'll never solve the problem if we walk away from MIDC.
Well, I'm not sure I agree. I mean, I've talked at length with the folks in St. George, and they're focusing on that down in St. George. As you know, they've actually gone out and identified by house.
And that's what I think the study is designed to do. And I think that when it shows how much unserved we have, that we will then become eligible for grant funding. Right now, I don't think the way things are written for MIDC, that they're even eligible for ALP funding because they pivoted to the underserved as opposed to the unserved. Yeah. The other part of it is there is federal and state entities being stood up as we speak and funded to do exactly that, get it to the last mile. And so I don't see a reason for it's just like your argument with the county. Why do we need MIDC between the feds, the state, and us? When our requirements and our needs are very different from Rockport's, Rockland's, and Campbell's. And so I just don't want to be in the same boat.
Well, we will hear from Mark Willett, who knows this stuff way more than us. And he's the one who told me that grants for South Thomaston are going to be hard to come by when I sent him Spectrum's chart of their coverage area in South Thomaston. So,
Okay.
to me, MID, walking away from MIDC is a classic case of kicking the can down the road.
Well, I'm not ready to walk away yet, but I tell you, they're pushing me away further and further. Hang on a second, I want to make sure Walter's had his chance to finish.
Oh, yeah,
I
quite
will
done.
open it.
I'm quite
Okay.
finished.
Does someone have their hand up? Sorry.
Yeah, if I may, I mean, I'm involved in this kind of on the side, this MIDC movement. My understanding, Jeff, going back to your comment, is that they pivoted, if you will, when many of the towns like South Thomaston balked at coming aboard. And the primary reason was that they had to generate revenue, so they had to go to people that were currently served or could quickly be connected to start generating the revenue. It's going to be an incredible cost to build that last mile, as you're talking about, get out to the end of these roads. That's why Spectrum and no one else is doing it. So they're going to have to generate significant revenue, either from borrowing or from subscription fees like you pay at Spectrum, in order to have the money to go the last mile. It's not going to happen initially. They could go to Rockport and Camden, who has
more service. I won't say they're fully served, but they don't have as many unserved or underserved people as we certainly do, and generate startup revenue right away. So I think that was the mindset of the folks that I talked to. Committed, I guess they're called now, into internet.
Development Corporation.
Yeah, and they are, you're right that they're gonna stand up some fed and state entities, but a municipal utility, which is essentially what they're looking to create, to me, is the logical place that the Fed and the state are gonna funnel money to a region. You know, the county isn't gonna take it on, you can see that from the discussion. So I'm kind of with Walter in the fact that, boy, if we don't get on board this horse, that money will go elsewhere. That state and federal money that's trickling down is gonna go elsewhere. That's just my 2 cents. Keep your eyes open.
Just real quickly, that's not what Matt Siegel told us was the reason they pivoted. But it may be, it's not what he said here publicly, but
Well,
go ahead.
yeah, so the major thing behind the pivot was Otelco coming in and laying fiber down in Camden and Thomaston and Rockland, okay, which, so if you don't like Spectrum's business model, you're really gonna not like Otelco's business model. And if they come in, they're gonna skim the cream in those 3 towns. And like I say, it's not gonna be a pretty outcome.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say, is that he sat right here and told us. And he used that word pivot.
What were the reasons that he gave you?
Just like Walter said, it was an economic decision that they were being threatened economically, and they wanted to defend Rockport, Camden, and Rockland from that onslaught. So right then, they told me, basically, we care more about those 3 towns, they didn't even include Thomaston in the discussion, than we do about the unserved, because they said we're moving away from unserved, and we're going to the underserved, and where existing service is right now, because we can't compete with them economically unless we do that.
I know those towns have already put significant money into that organization.
And that's the other part of it, is those towns committed a large share of their ARP funds to that. And personally, I have reread the ARP rules on it. And I agree with what Dorothy said. It's not eligible. Their ARP funds should not be being used for those underserved. The definitions are very clear. And they have it. It's just like, it's the same reason we can't, what Walter's saying, we can't get a grant because we already meet the requirements of minimum access. It's that way in spades in Rockland and Camden and Rockport. So how they're shifting that money to that process is personally beyond me. That's another reason I do not want to support it.
I don't think you're right about that, Jeff. I don't think, the money that Rockport and Camden ponied up occurred long before ARP money was distributed, and I believe you're gonna find that those funds were voted on at their town meetings.
Yes.
And that they came from property taxes ultimately.
That's interesting, because they said they were using their ARP funds.
Well, and in the Rockport application,
Says that they're
it
using their.
says that the select board, interestingly enough, not town meeting, because they're now criticizing the commission, says the select board has already agreed to commit their ARP.
There are, yes,
Yeah.
they do
Says
say
that.
that.
I mean, this application is, actually, that's not all of it. My printer ran out of ink as I was printing it. So anyway.
All right, we've drained this
Yeah,
subject.
okay,
I think.
Yeah, I think more to come. I really want to see the study. I really would like to hear back from Midcoast Inlet Development Corporation. I'd like to find out if they actually have sent that letter to the Knox County. Right. Or if that was just bluster, and we'll keep this on the agenda, I'm sure. Okay, moving on. Good discussion. Use of ARP funds.
Oh, no. Before we go further on that, does anybody have what we have already committed from our, how much we got so far?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I do.
John has it.
And what we've committed to?
Well,
I thought I had it in my notes.
Yeah, it's, we got 85,231.95 in our first tranche. Is that the word? Tranche. We committed 5,000 to Axiom study, 5,000 to the Knox Clinic. The vaccine incentives, that's a little loose at this point, but it's probably gonna be about $6,000 plus or minus,
That's mine.
you know, and again, we got more going on that, so. I thought we had agreed to pay the money that Kristen charged us for the broadband planning efforts. You know, in talking about the letter, drafting that letter, and I don't know that we formally agreed to that, but if we did, that's another couple of grand to date.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, it was $1,700.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is what kind of ticks me off, that they just ignored us. Because I think we took that very seriously, you know, that invitation, and I'm not sure the other towns did, and we did, and we have this bill here, which I don't have, you told me, but I don't remember.
425, 33,425, I think.
32,000? No.
3,425.
Is that this?
That's a premium thing.
No, I'm talking about the owl, the owl.
Oh, the owl.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's it, right? That we've actually committed to.
Yeah.
We've solicited information from the 2 daycare centers and the 2 stores. One store has indicated, the Maritime Energy, that they are going to decline. We have had a request from Little Learners, and the woman at the other daycare indicated she's working on hers. And Pam indicated to me that she would be submitting the paperwork that we asked for. So, and then we have the discussion about our own in-house premium pay. I think that's, and I did call the gentleman about possible ventilation improvements in this room. But personally, I'm kind of seeing that as maybe the second tranche, because I don't think that's gonna happen quickly.
So, yeah, one of the reasons that I asked was because of the stuff that we're gonna look at today, but also, I don't think the county is going to use their ARP funds for our road.
But they said that they were not gonna fund any town submitted applications.
No, that's not what they said. What they said is they're not gonna support it if it only supports the town.
Or benefits, or
Only benefits the town. That they are considering ones that have been submitted to towns that have a broader, but they're not supporting it, it's just for town. And so I think the argument could be made that ours is more than just the town, because it's the commerce,
the regional economic.
But I don't know that. So in my mind, I think we need to have in the back of our mind that part of that 85 is to pay the hole that we've got in our.
Well, in the back of my mind, I was thinking that is out of the second tranche.
Yeah, I just don't know if it's gonna be timely.
Well, we can pay ourselves back.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay, but that was in the back of my mind, and there's also a bill, as I understand it, now at the federal level, that would loosen up the ARP eligibility a little bit, that might include some local roads and bridges work too, so that would be nice. My understanding also is that, and I did watch the county meeting, that the premium pay is a non-starter. If towns want to do premium pay for their own employees, they didn't need to do it, and I guess Thomas has already done that, and, and I don't know about the other request that Amy had for the, what was that for? It was a small, some sort of a chair of equipment, a chair lift or something, but my sense is, if they're not gonna do something that benefits only one town, which I suppose you could argue that could benefit other towns, but that we probably wouldn't get that, so. But anyways, but on the premium pay issue, which is the first item under here, I asked Terry, just so we could get a sense of the order of magnitude of what we were looking at, if she could pull together some numbers, hours worked during the emergency period, which is March 15th, to 2020 to 6/30/21. She did that. I just took a couple of numbers out of the air, 30 cents and 40 cents. And then of course, it got more complicated because somebody said, what about stipend? Nothing's ever easy. And I tried to come up with a formula that would sort of prorate the stipend people. And that's what Terry sent out, but it didn't work very well.
Yeah.
So I went and redid an alternate on my own on the stipend pay, and that's what I sent to you guys up today. I think you have copies there tonight. I also, when I looked at it, I saw like the election clerks were getting $1.44, and I said to myself, that ain't right. They come in here for a day, expose themselves during the election for an entire day to everybody, and they get $1.44 from us. So I was feeling in my own mind that we should have a minimum of 25 or 50 bucks or something for, I mean, if I was an election clerk and you sent me a check for $1.44, I think I'd be insulted.
I wouldn't be an election clerk anymore.
So, but I'd like to, as I said last meeting, I'd like to move ahead with this, not the daycare stuff or the others, but I'm thinking I'd like to move ahead at the lower level or a lower level in 50 cents for now, just to get something out until we get a better sense of what our overall picture is going to be like. But I would like to get something out for folks before the holidays. So I would propose and that we execute the premium pay at the 30 cents an hour, which doesn't mean we couldn't revisit it later, with the minimums and the alternate stipend pay. And just let me explain the stipend pay thing. I sort of took Phil and his salary because he was the highest in here. He was here the whole period and he worked the most hours, with one exception of a per diem. And I just took what at 30 cents an hour, what percentage that was of his budgeted salary, came up with that percentage, and then just simply multiplied that percentage against each of the stipends. And I think that it drops Ryan and Amy, the couple of higher ones, somewhat from the original proposal. But I think it's fairer in the sense that percentage-wise, they're getting similar to the other hourly employees. That was my rationale. And again, with the minimum. And I'm not wedded to the 25 minimum, it could be the $50 minimum. I didn't mix and match them 100 different ways here, but. So.
Yes, yeah. I personally am leaning towards the 50 cent and 50.
I'm good with that. I just,
Yeah, I think that,
you know, particularly if,
I mean, we're talking a small difference between, you know, the 30 and the 50.
I agree, yeah, yeah.
Total dollars.
And those numbers aren't magic.
Right.
I mean, Amy's proposal was for $1 when she submitted it to the county. I'm not sure we have the resources to stretch to that, but Walter?
I agree with Jeff.
What about the alternate stipend? Are you good with that, or do you, I just think it's fairer.
I do, yeah, I agree.
Yes, I agree too.
Well, is there a motion to that effect, Jeff? or-
Yeah, I'd make the motion that we go ahead and authorize pay to the individuals on here at the 50 cents per hour with a minimum of $50, adjusting the stipends with your updated formula.
Okay, well,
Second.
discussion, couple things I want to point out, this does not include anybody who's not a current employee.
Okay.
And, I guess I didn't feel the need to reach back to folks that were, in some cases, not even on our payroll system anymore, correct? So, I just want people to know that. And make sure folks are okay with that. And the other point is that got a little dicey with some of the per diems, because some of the per diems haven't worked in quite a while, but Amy still considered them an employee. Terry, help me out here if I'm wrong, but
No,
she wanted to keep 2 or 3 on that hadn't worked in quite a while, but she still felt that they might return, so we kept them in at Amy's, I won't say request, but Amy's thinking on that. Is that fair, Terry?
Yes.
Okay. So, we're,
And I also want to say that I don't think we should put a dot on this. I'd like to do this now, but I would like to revisit it. Because in my mind, 50 cents an hour is maybe a little low, but I don't think we can, I don't think we could do the whole dollar now, but I would like to revisit it once we figured out all the other commitments.
I'd like to see what we get from the other daycare, and the other store, and what that adds up to, and whether or not we're gonna, I do think we need some, I think it would be nice to get some ventilation in here. We got basically 2 windows in the meeting room, even if it wasn't cold. So Terry, you've got, and the other thing is, I would like to do this, Terry actually suggested this, in a off payroll week. So it's a separate payroll
Oh, okay.
that shows just the premium pay. It's not blended in, and it wouldn't be taxed at the higher rate, correct? And it would also be very clean, and we can kind of keep track of exactly what we paid out in premium pay under the ARP funds. It doesn't sort of get like ragu just sort of in there.
Good idea.
So,
It'd be easier to keep track of when they come and say, what'd you do with your money?
so
Good idea.
further discussion? Is there any? Nobody good on that? All those in favor?
Whoops, I'm sorry. Just so everybody knows, right now, we're talking about somewhere around a little less than $12,000.
And then the idea is to reward people who actually worked through the pandemic and put themselves at risk running elections or the counter or Dana at the stump dump or fire and ambulance, and a large part of it's the ambulance. So,
Yeah, and I think it's a small price to pay for all their diligence.
I agree. Okay, all those in favor? Okay. Anything else we want to talk about with ARP at this point, or have we killed ARP for tonight?
You just want to keep.
I think we should get that once we get all 3 of those in, or, because the due date's not even here yet, so. I do have a couple of questions that I'm gonna ask her about, but. Okay. Update on the Little Red Schoolhouse.
Okay, so, and we have several folks here from the Historical Society. They did vote last Thursday to support not only them taking stewardship of it once the library has vacated it, but also the specifics in the lease, the red line changes, which I sent you the latest on it. It incorporated the things that we talked about last time. I had also checked with our EMA director on making sure that the warming station that the library currently performs would continue under the Historical Society. So we added a sentence in there that the Historical Society would continue that process and coordinate with the MA director for the use of it. And also, Terry did check, and we did, the last time when we did this lease originally, it did go to town meeting. And so I feel we are obliged to do it at town meeting again.
I think we should.
Yeah.
Personally, even if we didn't the first time.
Yeah, and apparently it was not registered. So we ought to do that. So I think right now, I don't know if we want to wait until the library is actually moved to do the town meeting, the special town meeting to approve it, or if we want to do it in anticipation of it.
Well, you're definitely thinking a special town meeting, you're not
Yes.
thinking about waiting.
Correct.
And we still don't really have a good sense on the time frame for the move. Do we feel that we can do a special town meeting here?
I think so. I don't think it'd be too controversial because we're just talking about updating the lease.
We do have a limit on the number of people that we set can meet in here. Because it's self-imposed, we could change that, but I'm not sure I'm mind to do that right at this point.
That limit was based on 6 feet of social distance spacing.
Yeah.
And there is a layout of that somewhere.
Yeah, and we've sort of gotten away from the 6 feet spacing.
And the Historical Society has met and discussed it. And so probably not the entire membership of the Historical Society would need to attend, but they could.
And you can't turn them away.
Right.
So, it's getting a little chilly for out here.
Yeah.
I don't know what the school's doing these days. And do
Well,
we-
they were okay with our town meeting being there
Yeah.
in June.
Right, but things have worsened since.
And Penny, how's the community room at the Methodist school playing these days? Is that a possibility?
At the church?
Yeah, I mean, yeah,
I have no idea. We are allowed to use it for exercise with distancing and masks. I think they said with distancing, it's a capacity of 25.
so it's much appreciably better than here.
No. Well, you want to think about it for a couple of weeks, and I don't think we're gonna be, I don't think we need to execute it within 2 weeks, but. Did you say you sent out a revised copy?
Yeah.
Does it say? Does it have is it this one? This is the one I marked up originally.
No, it should, up in the date, it should be XXX.
I don't think I saw that. Could you maybe shoot it my way again?
Yeah.
Sorry. Okay.
John,
Where does it say XX? Oh, yeah, right there, okay. Yeah, Penny?
if you want, I could talk to the building facility manager, COMC, and see what their room capacity is.
At the church,
Yes.
if you don't mind.
Sure.
That'd be great. It shouldn't be a long meeting, I wouldn't think, so maybe we could do it out here quickly. Yeah. But,
And
you
keep
know,
it short.
huh?
That would keep it short.
Yeah, it would keep it short. If it was a night like tonight, it would. Okay, anything else on this?
Or if we weren't to do that, if we were to go to someplace with larger capacity, would we consider packaging that with the vote issue, or is it too soon? Because we haven't done any education on that.
I thought we had decided to hold that off until
Until
the
June.
annual,
Okay, all right.
you know, then we'll get a good, I kind of like that idea. Yeah. Okay, update on.
So,
Go ahead.
this was my add-on agenda item?
Next one.
Okay,
Hang on one second. Let me get through the painting and you were at, right after that.
okay.
Update on painting repairs to Little Red Schoolhouse. I think I CC'd you guys. I got an email from Carol about storage. I talked to Penny, and we can originally store the shingles in the Guilford Butler in the garage, which should be fairly easy to do, given the level. And I don't know that there's anything else at this point. I know you're still pursuing. You have anything you want to offer us, new information, or?
I guess at some point we have to figure out where we're gonna get those shingles and hang them. to
Yeah.
dry until we can get a contractor, or somebody gets a contractor in the spring to replace them.
Yeah, and I guess, I had mentioned possibly, once the library vacates the Little Red Schoolhouse, that should be a pretty empty space, and maybe we could do it in there. I mean, obviously, we want to protect the floors
Absolutely.
and.
Yeah.
And particularly if it was gonna be a sort of a long couple month process or something,
Right.
you wouldn't be able to do them quickly, but we cannot do them, and I think Jeff, you chimed in agreement that we could not do them in the basement at Guilford Butler.
I think we could do them, we could dip them outside of the basement and then store them, hang them in the basement. I think you could do
Really?
that. I mean, it's still using it as a
Yeah,
storage.
I
space.
just feel, it makes me feel uncomfortable about,
Except if it's winter too, I don't wanna do it outside.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think we could dip them in,
Yes.
in the basement.
I'm also worried about the
Yes.
odors
Yeah.
and,
Yeah,
yeah.
right.
And, which is why I thought the Little Red Schoolhouse might be, and Penny, you had mentioned at one point the cellar at the Little Red Schoolhouse.
I think that.
Although that drawback is you gotta go up and down. Nothing's ever easy.
But the smell wouldn't be an issue because we really don't need it over the winter.
Right.
Right, that's what I'm saying, to
Yeah.
kind of isolate that,
Right,
hopefully.
Yeah.
Any word on delivery?
not yet,
Yeah.
still waiting.
Okay. And, so actually, so under the terms of the lease as proposed, the town is still responsible for the outside. So the contractor would actually have to sign a contract with the town, as I see it,
Correct.
which doesn't mean you couldn't help us find someone.
Right, right.
Because we have had no luck at all finding someone. But, I guess more to come on that. We good? Good. Okay, Walter, you wanted to,
Okay, so I sent you guys the mail that I got from Sue Snow.
Yeah.
Indicating a misconception about the section 7 of Randall Hopkins' will. So the restriction on the use of the principal lapsed in 2016. And then in 2018, I think, your predecessor, are you Carol?
Yes.
Came to us and asked for the entire principal to be turned over so that you could invest it. Town council said that we were not, as the select board as trustees, could not do that. And that if you wanted to do that, you'd have to go to probate court and get the trust nullified, and that she felt that no judge in Maine would support that because we hadn't done anything wrong. So the agreement was, what the will says very clearly is that 1/2, the 50,000 that belongs to you guys, is for the general use of the South Thomaston Historical Society. And what we said at the time was, just come to us with what you want to spend it on. And then the second part of that is, interestingly enough, that the trustees, the three of us, we can spend that money at our discretion as long as we're spending it on the Historical Society. So those are the two things. So, just be aware that that's a funding source for you guys going forward. And the only thing we as trustees need to do is to make sure that we're acting consistent with the terms of the will.
I did have a question about that. We have a few items that we're in need of, but we wanted to, do we purchase them first, then bring receipts to you? Or do we give you the item with the cost, then you give us money up front?
Yeah, I think the
don't
way
know how
I
that
left it,
works.
who was it, with Bill? Who was president at the time?
Chuck,
Chuck, no, I think it was in between.
no. it's
No?
not.
Okay, well, I said, come to us and say what you want and we'll give you the money.
Okay.
I mean, I didn't see any reason not to, I mean,
Right.
you know,
Okay.
so, I mean, it's rather loosely defined here.
Mhm.
We provide some type of a formal estimate of how we want to spend things, like
And they,
an example would be the furnace in the kitchen. I would assume we could use some of Hopkins funds for that purpose. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's general use of the
Yeah.
historical society. I mean, it's very, very loose.
okay, we do have a few items in mind, so I can put something together and present it.
Yeah, and for my thoughts on this is, I can't even think of something the Historical Society would come to us and say, I want to use the money for this, and we go, oh, no. I mean, maybe if you're gonna.
Ferraris,
Yeah,
you know,
take a trip to the Bahamas, that might, but I just can't even conceive that we would even balk at anything you request.
But you still need to know what the item is and the approximate cost. So
It's more
we can put
formality.
that together, right?
The trustee.
Okay.
just remember, we're trustees and so we, we're
This is
subject to
satisfying
discovery and a
you.
lot of other things if we do
Yeah.
something wrong. So it goes beyond us being selectmen.
I do think that you could we could approve an estimate, and then if it was a little more or a little less, I think we would need the invoice actually probably for the
Mhm.
record, just
Right,
to them, keep it in the file.
okay.
But I agree with Jeff, I can't conceive of anything that wouldn't be.
Neither did I was just shocked when I heard that there was feelings that they couldn't have any of it.
Yeah, and if I can
Yeah.
digress just a little bit, for any of you out there who are thinking about leaving money to the town or to the Historical Society or the library or any other function, make sure the wording in your will says that at the end of the restricted period, it goes to so that the town doesn't stay as a trustee forever. I mean, that's the easy fix for that in the future.
And I think again, to digress, I think a lot of times people leave the town because the assumption is the town will be there. And that certain organizations come and go or become dormant and, and so, not that I'm suggesting the historical society will. But, I'm not even sure why the update on the skateboard park maintenance is on here. I probably asked you to put it on. But I thought we were sort of, I can't remember. Were we on hold on that until we got someone to?
We have to find somebody to
Yeah,
take
and you had sort of
responsibility.
said, you've gone as far as you can go, and, so we need to find, again, that's kind of a maintenance man. We heard anything from the?
No, but I will call him if he's by.
Sure, because we desperately could use a maintenance man. Who was up here hanging bulletin board the other day?
Thank you, John.
So, Penny and I were actually hanging on. Walter, did you have something you wanted to add on that?
Yeah, I think the Camden model was, they got dads of skaters who happen to also be talented in things carpentry. So, we may, at good weather time, put something on the website saying, or if, people know who the skaters are, we can go and impress upon their dads. So just for, a lot of the boards that they skate on are pulling up, and as my son, who's a boarder, says, that's a collarbone break waiting to happen. So the skate park needs some work, and
Update on, this is gonna be quick. Update on assessors agent, CEO, LPI recruitment process. We have 0 applicants again, even though we combined this job, up the fee, included health insurance. We have 0. And I emailed the planning board today because they seem to think that I should say a member or two, a member perhaps seems to think that we're neglecting our duty, but I don't know how to do anything else. I mean, I've been thinking of people, I've talked to people, we've came up with the idea of combining the jobs, we came up with splitting the jobs. We've upped the pay well beyond what and the benefits well beyond what we're budgeted for, and we still get no response. And Terry Brackett's still hanging in there.
He's actually on vacation for 2 weeks
Okay.
right now, but other than that, yes.
Does he have a backup?
No,
No,
Okay.
no.
no, and if you happen to go on Facebook, you'll see some pretty unhappy customers in St. George that can't believe he actually went on vacation. They need stuff done.
I did see Dan Mascota was advertising for a 20-hour-a-week CEO, so I thought I might give them a call and say, you know, if and when you get any applicants, which you probably won't, if one of the impediments is someone needs 40 hours, we can talk.
Rockland just hired one for 20 hours. Either that or they're out recruiting, so.
I think they're.
I think they're recruiting, yeah.
so.
My suspicion is they're not gonna have unless their pay grade is a lot more than ours, which it may be, but still, I don't know what to do. More to follow, I guess we'll just keep trying. Consider abatement request 14 Sylvia's Way. Okay, we have, this was tabled from the last meeting, we have an abatement request from Michelle Casa, 14 Sylvia's Way. The assessors agent is recommending that we drop the building value from 402,000 to 317,20. We were a little taken aback by that dramatic of decrease, so we asked him to give us a little more information. We have a letter dated 10/18 that it actually bothers me a little bit because he says the property still assessed 34,000 more than the 2016 sale price. And I know over the years we made arguments that, you know, sale price and actually, I'm still not convinced.
I'm a little more convinced because the property, he compared several others.
Yeah, I saw that.
And this one was the outlier. And he also mentioned that it had been indicated higher because of a previously graded construction quality that in his estimation doesn't bear fruit. So
Did you go look at it?
I did not go look at it, but
I did. Did you? Looked pretty nice to me. I drove by it twice, and certainly from the outside, and and it seems as though he changed the style from colonial to something. Can't remember what it was. Colonial to. I'm trying to. Oh, that's not the owl. No. You remember what that was, Terry? He changed the style from colonial to something or other. And that dropped the value quite a bit. And I would agree, it's not a colonial. I mean, it's a colonial replica, maybe, but if you're good, not a hill to die on for me. I did talk to Kevin briefly. I did try to catch Jay. He wasn't, I was in here and when I was in talking to Terry before I got a chance to go in the back room to talk to him, he went out the door to lunch and I missed him. But I did talk to Kevin because my fear is I don't want to get into this cascading effect where, you know, you drop one, the next thing you know, then the neighbor's in. Well, you dropped him or her. But Kevin said he wasn't really familiar with this particular project, but he said they're very sensitive to that. And I mean, typically something like this, there's a mistake or the barn was torn down.
Right,
or-
right, right. Or it's more property.
Or we sold half the property to an abutter, or, you know what I mean, or, so. Is there a motion?
Yeah, I move to accept the recommendation of the assessor
That they,
agent.
I second.
discussion?
Yeah, I don't, when was the revale? Was it 2010?
Bring
Been
us
a long
down.
time.
Because I don't understand it was assessed 818,000 over the 2016 sales price.
Well, it sold in 16, and he said the assessed value was that much greater. The previous assessed value was that much greater than what it sold for in 16.
Okay, all right.
But, you know, but
Yeah.
that begs a whole series of questions too. Was this an arm's length transaction? You know, or was somebody in need to move property quickly? I mean, you know, there's a whole host of reasons why. Further discussion? All those in favor? All those opposed?
To quote a famous former occupant of this table, we have just committed a good deed that is not going to go unpunished.
Yeah, when we move to the next item here.
Okay, have I missed anything that we did adjustments on under new? I don't think so. Yeah, I got that. Hang on a second, I got that coming somewhere here. No, we can add that right here, actually. I was, so let me start out with what I was gonna do first, and then segue into your question. So we got, as I think everybody knows, we got the permits from DEP and Army Corps. Andrew sent what we needed for easements to Kristen, the town attorney. The good news is now is that we do not need any permanent easements based on the latest plan. They're all temporary construction easements, 2 to Spruce Head Lobster and 2 to 2 other parties. So Kristen emails back and said, do you want to stick with the same plan where I'll deal with Spruce Head Lobster and you deal with the other 2 in terms of a cover letter? And I emailed her back and said, unless you guys object, I think we should stick with that. Not because of what the original reason was, because the original reason is one of those was going to be a permanent easement and it could require some negotiation and monetary value. So I just want to make sure, number one, everybody's comfortable with that, and I drafted a letter for the other 2. It's quite short, and I just, if anybody's got any comments, if you shoot at me tomorrow or something, I'll shoot that right now. I'll get those 2 out if that's okay. And do you want to come from the board, all 3 of us sign it, or do you want me to sign it on behalf of the board, or?
I think the chair should sign it.
Okay. You are.
I agree, yeah.
So, so that's a little bit of an update. And the plan is to get it out to bid shortly. I don't think we need to wait for the easements now. I don't think so. I didn't hear back from Andrew or Kristen on that comment, but the way I look at it, if you don't want to sign the easement, you're gonna have a little lump getting out to the road. So the plan is to put out the bid, get them back hopefully in January with a contemplated construction for next year. I guess the big new news is now all the construction is in what, with the exception of the 4 tie-ins of the driveways, is within the rot area of the right of way. So we don't need a permanent easement, and so there won't be, theoretically, there's no cost with obtaining a permanent easement, if there would have been one to begin with, I don't know. So that's kind of where we're at. Is that?
Okay, hopefully like a spring construction.
I thought Andrew wanted to leave it somewhat flexible in hopes of getting the best price. rather than boxing the contractors into a narrow window.
I think he's gonna try to get bids in before the end of the year.
Well, I thought he was talking January, because remember we had the discussion about asking Terry?
I thought he was gonna try the end of the year though, because of our discussion.
Yeah,
Because of the
grant.
but I think he made it pretty clear that that was the timetable, he was probably looking more at January. So we do still have a projected shortfall of, what was the number?
37,000.
37,000, plus any additional legal fees or whatever, which actually shouldn't be many now, because I don't see this, the permanent easement is not gonna chew up legal fees, I mean, so it could be a little bit, so that's where we're at this point. Bids will come in, and if we're short, then we're gonna have to try to fill that gap if we wanna move forward.
Still okay with the grant and everything that you got?
Yeah, they basically have said that if you do indeed end up with a shortfall and you can't make the project go forward, we'd like to have you kind of have it all tied up, shovel ready. Let us know, we'll take back the money you haven't spent, and then you could reapply at some point if you can't fill a shortfall. But you've got a shovel ready project, and hopefully with infrastructure money coming, if it ever comes, and so on and so forth, that, you know, we can pull it together, so. But it's still iffy. So, okay. That cover it, Jan? Okay. Review or proposed 2022 state valuations. I've looked at this and played with the numbers quite a bit, and I'm of the mind that given the volatility in the real estate market, I think we should put off any serious analysis of this until things settle out a little. That's my thought.
I agree, and the reality is, if you compare the state's valuation in 2020 to our valuation in 2020, and the state's valuation in 2021 to ours, we're really close. The 2022 looks like it's gonna be much higher than our valuation.
Yeah.
But it's still gonna be closer to 90% than it is to 80%. So I'm fine with where they're going on this. And I think we're seeing a bubble right now, so I wouldn't want to do anything.
Aren't we obligated to sign off on this and return it by November 1st?
Not
No,
on
That's
a
the next
municipal
one.
That's the
valuation
next one.
return, yeah.
Oh,
this one, only if we're gonna object to some portion. of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
If there's any.
Well, it's actually 3 documents like it. It's the proposed valuations of all the towns in the county, which impact our revenue sharing and school aid and
Yeah, and our share of the.
the county's assessment, blah, blah, blah. My experience has been objecting to this is like objecting to, I don't know. And then there's the preliminary state valuations that are looking at us internally. I agree we're really close, but I worry more about the quality than I do the overall. As I've said many times, as long as everybody's treated equally and fairly, it's okay.
Well, and the difference between.
But it's all over the roadmap.
Yeah, well, I mean, waterfront versus regular residents, there's like a 4% difference between the two.
But that's starting to get there.
Yeah, so
Yeah. But,
I'm comfortable with it.
okay, Walter?
I'm fine.
Okay. Municipal valuation return. Before I forget, remember the woman wants us to write on it in red marker,
Yeah.
18 months, right on the front page.
Yes, you put a sticky there, and but I will, once you.
She said, write it right on the
I will-
paper
I
in
will
red
do that
marker.
Before I mail it.
I checked out, I didn't check out everything. I checked out what I call the critical page, which is the 10th page, and I matched it to our commitment. In terms of the tax rate, that's the taxable amount, the finance, the assessments. They all checked off. Well, I won't say perfectly, one was off 4 cents, but. So is there a motion to execute, approve, execute, whatever, the municipal valuation?
Move to return or approve the municipal valuation for 2021. I have a question.
Okay, second discussion.
I must have missed something. The projection in here of excise tax collection. 611, 815.
It's all other revenue. It should be in there.
No, I know. I just
Oh.
didn't, I didn't recognize the 611, 815 number.
Where is that?
It is under excise tax.
What page are we on?
I'm sorry, page 2.
Oh, okay.
Under 17.
I don't have my budget with me. I think the total checked out, so, actually, I didn't check that total because everything else balanced, so I assumed it backed into that, you know what I mean? And that's the hardest one to check, but do you have a budget, Terry, available?
I can go up in my office and get it.
Well, I think we should have this right, if there's a question. Or it should be on one of my financial reports.
Yeah, our financial report.
Terry, we might have it.
Automobile excise. Okay, so for the 18-month period, it's 532.80. So that's the current budget. For a year that's our year and a half budget.
So that's a long way from 611.
Yeah, what we put in the budget, 548. 195.
But it does
But
say,
that includes both excise.
right, but that's 622, if you include that.
That's
The
called
problem
out
gets
separately
worse.
too.
It does say collected, not projected. I wonder
Right,
if that-
and I did print out a report from him from Trio that was an 18-month period.
But why, who did the shed, or, huh?
Is it last year?
So is that backwards looking,
Yeah,
collected over some period of time?
Well,
So they probably projected 18 months in the past.
Would they have done that?
he did last year, and I thought this first 6 months of this year.
Okay, that would make sort of sense.
yeah, but I'm not sure that's the right way to do it, though, but. Because that, so something else would have had to have been adjusted in in all the anticipated revenue would be out of balance.
Because we wouldn't have gotten to the tax commitment, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Can we approve it with the stipulation that Terry will confirm try to confirm what's going on there? And I don't think it's a fatal flaw if the totals add up, but it should be right, I agree, but. That work for folks?
Yes.
Okay. So with that, favor
So what is your motion?
to approve,
Approve the valuation, 2021 valuation return.
but it's not in the motion, but with a sort of a friendly stipulation that you're gonna check out the excise tax.
Okay,
And if you're not satisfied,
well, I gave him the report for the dates that he wanted.
yeah, well, I'm not sure he's doing it. Seems to me, everything else is based on the budget, I'm not sure, but it does say collected there, so.
Right.
And I mean, I did the same with the boat excise, that's what was collected in that
Yeah.
18-month period.
Yeah. You and I can talk about it a little small,
Okay,
okay?
Oh, one. So then, there's a sticky here in this, in the master. 1/1/2020 through 6/30/2021, so it's an 18-month. But that's our budget, that's this.
Yeah, something's funny. I think it should be the budget. but-
Okay. So do we sign where it says assessors, because that's who we are?
That's my assumption.
Yes. Yeah, actually, when we granted that abatement, we were meeting as assessors.
So call me up.
We can also talk to the woman at the state, who's very nice, the woman who said, make sure you put it in red pen. She's very nice. She says, because I'm stupid and I'll end up calling you. All right, pass that back down. Okay, moving right along. EMA Director. To review EOP, consider appointment of assistant. Why don't we take those backwards, if that's okay with you? Why don't you talk to us about your thoughts on an assistant?
I think they correlate together, so if you don't mind, maybe doing the review first,
Okay,
and we'll get to the logistics of the assistant.
okay,
5 years ago, we did a complete overhaul of the EOP, and I don't remember if any of you were present during that. I don't,
I was.
walk away. We had a big workshop, we had the ambulance and the fire department, heads come in. And this year, after doing an extensive review, and to save everybody a lot of time and energy, I interacted with both the chief and Amy so that they could update their portions, their personnel, their equipment, and anything else that was pertinent to their particular departments. In addition to that, all of the contact information has been updated, and that was probably 95% of the contact information that we had to be changed. The important items are the addition to the EMA emergency management ordinance went in. That was passed in 2017. Walter was there. But the most important addition that was added was the section, the annex G1, which covered disease and epidemics.
can you give me a page?
Page 30, I believe it is. Let me-
32.
32, thank you. We did not have any guidebook on disease and pandemics when we got hit with the pandemic. So what happened was a great deal of work occurred. We had a young public health officer, Mo Doobie, who was outstanding in helping me after the state declared emergency to literally lock down this town. And we had to kind of make those rules and guidelines as we went along, because we'd never been through, nobody had been through any of this. So, it was tough, but we got it accomplished. And we managed to, we had shortages of PPE. None of you, except for Walter, were here during that time period. And the amount of work, that went into it to get everything on the, everybody in the same page and to establish some guidelines, we managed to pull it off and it worked pretty well. We shut down the town office immediately and worked so that we could provide services through the access window in the office there. It was kind of makeshift, but it worked. So after that, that gave me some ideas on how to do it if it happens again. It also pointed out the importance of a public health officer, of which I believe that position has been overlooked and, if you pardon me, randomly filled with a body. There's certifications that are required for the local public health officers that I do not believe have ever been accomplished. They're supposed to be certified 6 months after they've taken the position. And to my knowledge, I don't believe that we've ever had a certified public health officer.
We don't have one right now, certified or otherwise.
But I got a job for you.
Well, by
Anyway.
definition, John, that would be you.
Yeah.
In the absence of an official one, you're the
He
man.
is the public health
And
officer.
where does that flow from? Is that in this ordinance?
It's in a separate.
It's in a
We
separate
gotta get rid of
place.
that ordinance.
You can do
I
that.
did an outstanding job when it was my turn to do that.
But, the importance of having a public health officer really, it became very obvious because in order to quarantine, in order to close public buildings, in order to close private buildings, that's under the auspices, the legal auspices of the local, public health officer. But with that, taking that into consideration, one person cannot do that under the circumstances that we were faced with. I mean, it was a lot of work and it took many, many hours in order to get this whole thing calmed down, get people supplied with PPE equipment, manage the CDC. I was working 12 and 14-hour days for a long time. And that's it leading into my next request. All of the other departments, the fire department, the ambulance department, they have assistants for the assistants to the assistants to the chief. I'm a one-man band here. If something happens to me and I fall down and break my neck, nobody is gonna know how to do any of these things that I do. Open a shelter, evacuate residents from the island if need be, handle a pandemic, and someone, and I think it should be one of the select board members, needs to know how to do these things, or at least where to find the information to do it, besides me. Because it's a big responsibility, and it's really not fair to the community if I'm incapable of doing the job, knowing to do it, and knowing knows how to do it. And when EMA started out, and when I took over, there was no EMA. There's now an EMA, where we have evacuation standards, we have guidelines, we have protocols, we have what we need in order to mitigate emergency disasters in this town. But I can't be the only person that has this information. So I would like for you to approve my ELP, and I would like for you to consider appointing a liaison, where you can call them what you want, but someone who has physical capability that can use the generator, someone who will at least have access to the 18 volunteer shelter volunteers that I have, who knows how to at least open the shelter, and if need be, assist in any evacuation procedure. I think that's a critical step in protecting the residents of this town. So that is my spiel. Thank you.
Can I ask?
Yeah, go for it.
So on that page 32, Betty, this is a nit. Under situation, it says an epidemic is limited by geography. Shouldn't it say that an epidemic is unlimited by geography?
I took that right out of the CDC book.
Oh, okay.
So they're the man. I'm gonna go with what they say. No offense.
It's the pandemic that's not limited.
Yeah, it's the
Oh,
pandemic
okay.
that is not
Thank you.
limited.
You're right. Okay.
Good catch.
A larger discussion that should follow on with this, in my view, is the succession plan for the emergency management director.
Okay, wait, can you speak just a
The
little louder?
succession plan, we need a succession plan. And in addition to short term, you need some help. Longer term, we should plan for the next generation. And along those lines, does anybody know the two PAs that, or nurse practitioners that live on my road, on Waterman Beach Road?
I know one. But she works full time.
Yeah, well, yeah. Okay, I just,
Yeah,
I'm thinking out loud.
I don't know where you're going with that, but I don't believe it. I think that nurse practitioners or anyone that has a professional access to the medical field are classified as qualified people, so they would not have to do a certification.
You're talking about now is the public health officer,
Right,
not the assistant, or whatever.
right, not,
Yeah.
right.
So we got several balls in the air here, and I have a nit on page, before I forget it, on page 32. I think under the law, the town clerk, not the municipal administrator, is responsible for burial permits and death certificates. Am I not correct, Terry?
I think that
And they not necessarily always the same person. When Owen was here, Chelsea was the town clerk, and Owen was the municipal administrator. No biggie.
Maybe.
But, so we're talking, we have, I don't disagree, I guess, with too much of what you said, but I don't know we're gonna get anybody. I mean, we can't get.
No, what I'm saying, John, is I believe
Yeah, well, my question is, do you have someone who's willing to step into that role?
I have, no. I
Not the
believe-
public health officer,
No, I believe that a member of the select board should do it.
well, I know you believe that, but I don't believe that. But,
Trust me when I tell you that no one is gonna take this job for what you pay them.
no, I'm not even talking about, I'm not even talking about succession. I think we got three things in the air here. We don't have, or I guess we do have a public health officer, although the public health officer didn't know that he was a public health officer until 20 seconds ago. So that's a problem, obviously.
That's a problem.
And nor, and it also makes me reconsider whether I want to be on the select board anymore. So that's an issue. But you're talking about an assistant for lack of a better word,
or a liaison.
or a liaison,
Call
whatever.
them what you want.
And you don't have anyone,
Sure.
you don't have anyone in mind for that? other
I do
than
have somebody in mind.
Somebody on the board of select,
Yes,
okay. And you have a particular one in mind?
yeah, and I'll tell you why.
Okay, and then,
No, I mean, no offense to this. John, you are absolutely wonderful administrator.
yeah. So, and then the third. And then the-
Walter, I don't think he's got the physical capability at this time.
After my surgery on November 8th,
Yeah.
I'm out for sure.
Okay,
He's not gonna be doing mechanical work, he's not gonna be lifting a generator, so that only leaves one guy.
that's right, I'm looking at him.
Besides, he's got so much experience at the airport, he would be perfect.
And he knows the county roads and yeah, I was, yeah.
Did your way out.
So, and then the other issue was succession, which is a whole other issue, and I agree, we're not gonna find someone to do the job for what we pay you, and I don't think we're gonna solve that problem tonight. But,
But that's why I suggested getting a liaison, because
Yeah.
if there's someone else that I can hand information to, if I fall down, or if I want to take a vacation like I haven't had in
Yeah.
3 years, then I know that they have the information they need if something happens.
okay, so let's separate this, do we agree that we need to have, whatever we call this,
Sous
do
chef.
we need to have
Yes.
someone in that role? Do we have an agreement there?
I'm not quite convinced of it, but for argument's sake, I'm willing to see.
Okay, so if we do agree, I think I agree. Do we have any volunteers?
Part of my issue is I do not mind being a liaison.
Okay, good.
Okay, so, but it gets convoluted if I'm the EMA deputy. Because my sister, my daughter, my brother, because I have a role as a select board member, which supervises the EMA director, who supervised
You do what?
by the EMA director.
Sorry.
So, but a liaison, I have no problem with that.
Okay.
Matter of fact, I think it's probably a good idea, because, and this is actually the first time I've really read the ops plan. Because in it, several times, it says that the select board is responsible for things that I have always assumed was the EMA director's responsibility.
Well, but if you read it, it's a conjoined in correlation with the select board.
Right.
It's the EMA in addition to this. That's another reason why I think it's a good idea, because there would be a conduit between you so that the select board knows what's going on and me. So if we have to evacuate the island, say,
You're not here.
and, or even if I am here, Jeff, I need to evacuate the island, then you can disperse that information while I go do the EMA work. Sorry.
That's okay.
But, an open line of communication, because really, none of you know what's going on. You don't have a clue as to the, emergency procedures that would be involved in evacuating the island. Or even Dublin Road, Hayes Point.
That's why we have an EMA director.
Yeah,
And the fire
but
chief.
And the fire chief,
seriously,
man.
and to have one person responsible for that is really
Okay.
not a great idea.
So before we kill this, are you willing to be as the select board liaison to the
Yes.
EMA director? Walter, are you willing to make that a motion?
I move that we appoint Jeff as the select board's liaison to the EMA, to the director.
I'll second that. Is there any discussion? Does that satisfy you and your?
I'm a happy
Okay.
camper.
All those in favor? Okay. Now,
The
the
EOP,
EOP, I,
one more thing about the EOP. I could go on ad nauseum into the disease and but I want to keep this document flexible. Because we're always learning new things. So I tried to make it as simple and concise as possible. Because like Jeff is probably the only person in the last 10 years that's actually read this document, but it's a guidebook and it's not something that needs to be extremely detailed and picky. It's a guide. So I'll stop talking now.
with the two little nits that we picked up, I'm fine.
Mine is not,
Huh?
I got corrected. I raised it.
Oh, okay, with the one little nit.
Yeah, I would make a motion that we accept and sign and execute the revision to the South Thomas and the EOP.
Oh,
Second.
oh.
All those, further discussion? All those in favor? Okay.
Hot diggity. Now, can you sign 3 copies of that? And I have to have for distribution to various places. Thank you very much. I'm a happy teenager.
10:24, 26.
I don't see any idea what No, it's about clicking.
Now, see, this is something I would think the county should do.
They do.
So they do.
Yeah, but they don't really, but then they don't really run it, they kind of farm it out.
Which, Frank,
Yeah, they're free.
Oh,
she wants to sign it.
Yeah.
oh, I missed that, I missed that. All right, I'm gonna keep moving while we're signing here. Consideration accepting a donation to the fire department. Terry, do you have details on this?
Linda Pop donated.
Can't hear, guys. Can't hear.
Linda Palmer donated $100 to the fire department.
Is there a motion to accept?
So moved.
Second? Further discussion? All those in favor? And Terry, you had a couple of other donations you wanted to add?
Yes. I have a donation from Catherine Bentine for $100 to the library. Do you want to go one at a time?
Sure.
So moved. Move to accept. Second.
Further discussion? Thank you very much, Catherine. All those in favor?
And I also have a $100 donation to the library from Elizabeth Lunt. Lunt.
Lunt? Okay, yeah. Motion?
Move to accept.
Second. Further discussion? All those in favor? Okay. Do we have any other adjustments, before we get to correspondence? Oh, wait a minute. Oh, sorry. Consider personal policy amendment for EPL. Harry, I read this tonight. I'm a little confused.
It's confusing.
And I would like, if you guys would oblige me, I would like to table this and get to spend a few minutes with Terry to try to figure out exactly. I just need to understand it better.
Yeah.
I agree. And I want to make sure that we're doing what we think we're doing. Because it's so weaved in with other leaves and I know sometimes when you try to take an existing document and mark it up, it sometimes gets more complicated than if you just started anew, but maybe not. So I would entertain a motion to table this. You don't need it tonight, but.
No.
And could you do me a favor and send me what prompt, where you're getting the prompt for this.
Yeah, I can send you all the ones that sent to me.
Yeah. It's a new law.
Yeah, and I haven't seen the new law, so that's
Yeah.
really what I'm.
Well, actually, it's not that new anymore, because
Yeah.
we were assured that this was all taken care of, right? And, but it wasn't. Okay, so is there a motion to table?
I move to table the change to the personal policy.
Second. Further discussion? All those in favor? Okay,
Thank you, guys.
thank you. See you, Chuck, Carol. Correspondence, we've added, life flight and was there another ad on the correspondence?
DOT.
No, that's on there.
I'm gonna go back up to the top.
I don't think there was.
No, I don't think so.
Okay. So Penquist, I think it's the standard response, is it not, or that we don't take donation requests for social service agencies, and that they can get a petition put on how many if they want to, but
That's what I was gonna ask. Would it, rather than have a petition, there are enough of these so that we think about saying, putting something on the website that says, as, before we start putting the warrant together, if you want to come and ask us to put something on the warrant.
we're likely gonna deny you. But,
Okay.
Yeah,
I know it's a slippery slope.
yeah, I hate to go down that road again. I mean,
Oh,
we
you've been
gotta-
there before. huh?
Well, we got
Oh, yeah.
into this stuff with people were up because family planning, you know,
Yeah.
wanted a donation, and they
Okay.
had philosophical issues with, and you know what I mean? It's-
Oh, I totally agree with that. I don't,
We
you know,
have.
I don't want to speak,
hours.
I don't want to spend somebody's money on a cause that I like that they might not.
Right. And there is an avenue, they can file a petition, and we then have to put it.
Right, so is that one of those ones where they have to get 10% of the people that voted in the last,
Something,
which is 80 some, by the way?
yeah, yeah, it's quite, I don't know what it is, but Terry can give them guidance on that, and I think it served us well.
Okay,
And we didn't totally cut them off.
right.
So, now, Maine DOT, they're asking us to spread the word, nobody's gonna be able to dig that road up, and does everybody know what the Pug Mill thing is? That's what they did at 73 from the Buttermilk to the Island Road, and it's really held up well. Really well. It's expensive, but,
That's gonna go in your hard copy.
Okay.
And that goes into your secret file. And then tomorrow I'll combine 2 more copies so I can distribute these.
Okay, so you're gonna need 2 copies of this?
Yeah.
Okay.
So- I would
Thank you.
suggest that we just have, as a request, have Terry post it, put a copy of it on the website, send it out in a listserv. We don't have any water or sewer. The only road opening permit we've granted in, well, we don't have one, we don't have a system to do that, so. But they're not gonna grant any permits, so.
I missed what you wanted me to do.
Just take their letter, post it on the bulletin board, post it on the website, send it out on the list for just FYI. Because the main thing in there, I guess, is no one's gonna be allowed to dig that road for 5 years once they do this. And if someone wants to, I can't imagine, well, we don't have any public utilities, if that's gonna be an issue, but I guess unless somebody wanted to put a well on one side of the road and bring it across to the other. Okay. And Lifelike. I guess I see this as a little different than the social service, and I'd like Amy's opinion on this personally.
And I've got personal opinions. So,
You do?
yeah.
Positive, negative?
Not necessarily.
You want to put it on next agenda for
Yeah,
more full
whatever.
discussion and?
But just to let you know, I'm very familiar with Mr. Judge and his organization. They do a great job throughout the state, but they are two different, they are under one heading, they have two organizations, a not-for-profit and a very much for-profit. And a lot of what they do gets kind of intermingled. So when they're asking for donations to the nonprofit side of it, they're for-profit, raked in a bunch of bucks for those 6 people in the last, more than our ambulance does, and they do not forgive individuals on it. So there's no, so, and they cut out competition. Matter of fact, Penobscot Island Air just the other day had an accident on one of the islands, taking out a patient. But they have done all they can to keep him from being able to do that, even though they will not service the islands. So I have some philosophical issues with Lifelight.
Yeah, well, that's good information.
Yeah.
The other thing I'll throw in is, I think I would be more amenable if they had said, due to the pandemic and the issues over the last year and a half, we're asking for it, then I, in my mind, could do just like we did clinic and put it in the ARP file. But otherwise, it's still a donation from the town. It is exactly the same. as
Well, it is, but it's not a social service agency in
Right.
that sense, but you're right, it is a donation.
But I am curious to hear what Amy has to say.
Okay, so
So
can you
I
put
will-
this on the agenda and send that to her for the next meeting? Just ask her if she has any thoughts or comments,
And let's ask her if she would pay for it out of her budget.
sure. Yeah, it's easy,
Because
when someone else is paying for it.
Right.
Okay. So review items for next agenda, we'll keep on Guilford Butler. I think we can drop the appointments to the committee. I think we'll keep Midcoast on, correct? Keep Barb on. I think we can. We want to talk about town meeting for the lease, right?
Right.
I think yeah, I said keep that. Yeah, July removal, we can drop the sec, we can drop B. Keep C on. I almost see C being a running agenda item for quite a while. As well as the outcomes. We drop the premium pay for the town, I guess, but. Skateboard, I think we can drop. Keep the assessors on, the abatement we can drop, obviously, evaluations. Those are both, A and B are done. C done. Obviously D, and we're gonna keep E on. Anybody else got anything they want to add at the next meeting? Think about, do we need to start thinking about budget? Having a discussion about budget development, or are we a little early on that?
I think we're early because we moved from March to June, so.
January, February, we did January, February. Had a budget in April. Right?
That's what we kind of talked about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
No, but I meant just sort of getting. We're probably a little early. Yeah, okay. I'd like to schedule, if we could, January meetings, because I'm actually leaving in January. I'd like to do my first one here, and then I'll have to Zoom the next. If that's okay with folks. Actually, why don't we go through where we're at right now?
Yeah, because I.
So today's the 26th. We're done with that.
So with the 16th and the 30th of November.
Yeah, and I will not be able to be at the 16th.
16th. Do we want to move that to the 9th?
No.
I won't be, I'll be hospitalized.
Do we
Me
want,
too.
do we want to move it to the, do we want to just have one? Should we move it? No, we don't want to move it to the 23rd, probably.
Well,
That's the day before Thanksgiving.
2 days.
For 2 days.
Yeah,
I will be out of town.
yeah.
will you be back by the?
I'll be back on the 30th, yeah.
Well, if we need to, we can always have a quick meeting to deal with 1 or 2 things at, you know, like 4 in the afternoon sometime, something like that. So why don't we just cancel the 16th? Terry, would you make sure that notice gets out?
Yep.
Uh,
Where you having your surgery?
Newton Waltham, Massachusetts.
There's nothing,
I'm going to. Amen.
there's nothing going on here. No, I guess not. Okay, so we're gonna cancel the 16th. Okay. And then December, we have, we don't,
14th and 28th.
we do, okay, 14th and 28th. I don't have my calendar yet. And then, I'm actually leaving probably on the 7th of January, so I wonder if we could do the 4th. That works well for you? And then I don't care when we do the next one, we can do it the 18th, 25th, I'll be zooming,
Well, the 18th follows the pattern.
okay?
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And that good enough for now?
Sure.
Okay, and,
Can we go back up to the items for the next agenda? I was trying to finish up something else.
yeah.
We have the lease, the library location, mid-coast internet.
Yeah.
ARPA funds.
Yeah.
And Guilford Butler School.
Yeah, I don't know that we need to keep the painting and repairs on unless there's something new comes in.
Just an update.
I don't know that we need to keep that on though.
Okay,
Unless something
take it
comes
off.
in, unless something comes in. But we need to deal with the lease. Skateboarding, take off. Let's keep the assessors agent on. I want to keep that running. Obviously, the abatement can go off. A and B and the new can go off. C can go off. Well, donations go off unless you get some, and we're gonna keep E on, right?
Yes.
And we're gonna put light on, and you're gonna talk to Amy. Okay?
Yep.
And, you know, that doesn't mean something else won't come up, obviously, it probably will, but. But Walter, I feel like we missed something you asked to talk about.
Tomorrow night.
Tomorrow night, I knew there was something. I knew it was under scheduled future meeting. Hold on one second. Yeah, go ahead,
I
man.
have a question about donations. I had someone purchase quite a bit of paint. And do I bring that to you?
Technically, yeah, they're donating it to the town, right?
Yes, I don't know. She will get me receipts, I will have it total. So do you want me to bring that to the next?
Well,
meeting?
I thought we had an understanding that any donation that went to the town had to come in front of the board, no matter how minor it was. Just as a legal matter, but also as sort of a courtesy and they
Okay.
can also use it as a tax deduction.
Well,
potentially.
they'll certainly use it for applying for grants, you know, as money spent, but,
Well, granted,
paint is already used, so.
well, we can do it retroactively.
Well, and the same thing we did with the shingles, we accepted the shingle donation without an amount to it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Whatever shingles they're gonna donate, we accept.
And tomorrow night, are you,
Well, we're gonna talk about that right now, tomorrow night.
I was just wondering about the technical aspect.
Well, I think that's what we're gonna talk
Okay.
about, the whole thing, so. I don't think I'm gonna be here tomorrow night, unless my, plans get changed. So we don't have a vice chair, so one of you two will have to fight over who chairs the select board. And obviously, Laura, if she's here, will chair the budget committee.
Yes.
Um,
I'll defer to you.
What did you have anything in
Yeah, I guess,
specific?
well, so I wanted to get agreement amongst us of what the important points that we want to make. And I think we've got some revenue overachievement that's already happening, and the rest of revenue seems to be on track. I haven't spent too much time in spending, other than I think ambulance is gonna be over on its wage line again. And I would imagine that that has to do with the fact that calls are creeping up. And, but the only time it should go over is when the calls that are creeping up are off hours. Because everybody else is already paid for in the budget.
But their revenue, I know it's not appropriate, but their revenue is also way
Way, yeah,
Yeah,
sure.
we might want to consider in the future setting them up as sort of like an enterprise fund. It's a different type of fund accounting, whereas, if they can generate things to generate revenue, that generates additional expenses, but, a lot of ambulances that are revenue producing, I think, is set up that way. They're not locked in by that appropriation. Say all of a sudden, an opportunity comes up to serve Owl's Head or the south end of Owl's Head or something, that generates more revenue, but they may have a few more expenses.
You need a piece of Owl's Head that's now in our voting district.
Yeah, right. Whatever. But that's another discussion. Sorry, I got us off track.
So if you see anything in the spending that you think we need to call out, let me know. And we know that Moira, the first words out of her mouth will be how much ambulance write-offs are. So would you send me the final note, the final amount? Other than that, we're in pretty good shape.
I think we have to.
Yeah.
Oh, I got a nice email from Mara with about 8 questions.
Oh, did you?
Oh, really? Did you send them to me?
Yep.
Me too. I'm curious.
Yeah, send them to me too, I probably won't be here. And what about the technology? What's the gentleman's name who?
Yeah.
Jeff,
Jeff asked us if we wanted it tomorrow night, and I said, oh, geez, I assume so. And he thought we could set it up ourselves, but I don't know if Terry feels that way.
He did just send an email that said, how to do that.
Are you available tomorrow night?
No,
You're not, right?
I'm available to be a co-host if this is a Zoom party. I can do that from the library.
Well, I don't know that we need to let anybody Zoom tomorrow night, unless someone on the budget committee is.
Everyone
planning.
said they would be here.
Okay, so then we don't need to.
Zoom.
So you
Yeah.
won't be posting it to YouTube. then.
Oh, we probably should post it. You can't post it to YouTube unless you Zoom it.
Right,
What?
because that is our recording format.
But even with this new thing, we can't?
But you don't have to let anybody in.
Oh,
Right, that's what I'm saying. And that way you don't have to sit there and watch it.
That's true.
Right. It's not gonna let anybody in. I guess I'll leave it to the people that are here tomorrow night.
We'll do our best to set it up.
Yeah.
It's probably a good meeting to,
did he send those step-by-steps to just you?
He sent it to Terry and copied me.
Okay.
Maybe
Copy to me.
Basically,
I'll
don't
come
touch
in.
anything.
maybe it's,
Oh, just leave it like it is right now.
maybe it's a good night to practice. Because it's just sort of, it's not, there's no decisions being made. I mean, it's just a review. Good night to get a practice.
Yep.
Anything else?
No.
Works for you? Okay, do we have warrants?
Yep, they're right here.
And is there a motion to adjourn? Or does everybody have anything else? No, six or more. Six. We're getting close. So is there a motion to adjourn?
move to adjourn.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor? Okay. Well, that wasn't too bad, considering we spent so much time on a couple of issues.
First rule of the cavalry
Is